Got to turn the AC on. Yeah.
This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
Yeah, I really do like that song. I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. We have a guest coming on with us, Mr. Peter Vogel. You can kind of see him off to the one side of the screen. But before we get to Peter, let me just say I want to thank all of you for joining us here. Starting out a little bit late today, but that's okay. That happens. It's what's called live television. That's what makes it happen. I want to thank all of you for joining us here on Main Street as you do every week. So far, you're making all these shows absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate it. I also want to thank Dave Lamont for joining me last week, and there are a lot of other people to thank along the way. But also, I'd like to thank our new community sponsors, the Japanese Garden of Miami and the Elks Lodges of Miami, and we'll be talking more about their programs upcoming in the next couple of weeks or so as we get through this particular program. So without further ado, let me introduce to you an actor, comedian, writer, voice actor, a one-man show, just one of the great gentlemen of all time, and I have the pleasure of calling him friend, Mr. Peter Vogel.
Hey,
what's up, babe?
That was some introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Well, you're taking enough drugs, you come up with any kind of an introduction, you know.
Which
Peter's here.
me.
Yeah, Peter's here to talk about his two one-man shows, which are absolutely fantastic. Till Death Do Us Part, You First, which I love that title. And the other one is My Mother's Italian, My Father's Jewish, and I'm in Therapy. So if you get a chance, if they're going to be performing anywhere in your area, which they will be in Stuart, Florida, at the ACT Theater in Stuart, you can call 772-932-8880 for tickets March 24th, 5th, 26th, and 27th. Go and see this man. He's a funny man, and I don't mean in the Joe Pesci kind of a style. Yeah, you're a funny guy. You make me laugh. You're funny.
How do I make you? I amuse you? Like what? And I was also going to be up in Waterbury, Connecticut, Gary, this March 19th and 20th at the Seven Angels Theater in Waterbury. This is my second time coming back. The first one was pre-COVID, so I'm coming back. The show has been updated and funnier than ever. And they can go to Seven Angels Theater with an R-E, Seven Angels, S-E-V-E-N Theater, THERTRE.org. There are some tickets still available. I'm doing a Saturday night show at 8 p.m. Then the next day, a matinee. So please come on out. Tell all your friends out in the Waterbury, Connecticut area.
Let's not forget who is the gentleman who is directing you in this entire production of
Yes.
Till Death Do Us Part, and that is Chaz Palminteri. And I want the folks out there, I know the story. You've told it to me a couple of times. I love it. I smile at it. I wish Chaz could have been with us today, but he's very, very, very busy, as a big Hollywood star would be. How did Chaz get involved with you and directing you in this wonderful production?
It was serendipitous. We had a mutual friend who said to me years ago in Florida, I have a buddy coming to your show tonight. I go, who is it? I'm not going to tell you. Just leave 2 tickets under my name and he'll pick them up. And him and his wife came to the show. It was Chaz Palminteri, who I knew through proxy through my friend. And the show was in the beginning, like a solo show is like you're nurturing a child. You write it out, you workshop it, you figure out what works, what doesn't work, you get feedback from the audience. So it was ramping up into adolescence, going into the teenage years. And Chaz thought it was very funny. He says, I've never seen anything like this. And I said, I happen to be looking for a director, not thinking in my wildest dreams that he would want to direct a show. And he says, well, you got one. And just like Robert De Niro discovered him in A Bronx Tale 34 years ago at the theater in Los Angeles, he discovered me. He goes, he teaches acting and he teaches people how to do solo shows and he gets offers all the time. He doesn't have the time. And most of them weren't at the level I'm at. So I felt, kismet that the stars were aligned at that moment, that Chaz would direct the show. And who better to direct a show than the man who created the greatest, I believe, solo show in franchise history, because it spawned the movie, 2 restaurants for him, the Broadway musical, and he still does the solo show himself, A Bronx Tale, around the country.
Yeah.
So, and he is actually part of the show, Chaz. He is my voice of consciousness. He's my conscience. And he's the glue within the show, keeping me on my hero's journey of why I have a fair commitment at my age of getting married. And I show audiences, as I tell people, Gary, all the stories I tell on stage are absolutely true. The names have been changed to protect the guilty. They're all real stories of my romantic, futile, hapless love life of meeting women that weren't right, or I've met women that were right, but it was the wrong timing. I mean, everything in life is luck, and it could be with finances, love, romance, keeping the romance going. Everything in life is luck.
Yeah.
And I talk about it, why I was attracted to the wrong women, why the wrong women were attracted to me, why as a comedian I held off on getting married. And yes, I'm still single at the moment, but I'm in a relationship with someone. But I show them really what it's all about. It's very autobiographical, and I play all the characters, the women, the men, buddies that are married, buddies that are single. So, and Chaz really fine-tuned it.
You know, it's funny. I met my wife very much the way Leno met his wife, Mavis, at the Improv in LA. And you know the Improv very well in LA because we both were LA guys. You know, and she was heckling from the audience, and she was wonderful. She was absolutely fabulous. And she worked in the advertising world. She worked for J. Walter Thompson. For those of you who don't know, they were at one time. I don't know where they are now, Peter. Maybe you can tell me.
I actually did a commercial for J. Walter Thompson. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
I did a commercial too. Or by the way, I was the ring around the collar man for Whisk detergent in the mid '80s. I played a crappy comic that had a ring around the collar and his partner. I'll send you, if you go to my website, you can actually see the commercial of I was
What's
the ring
the
around the
website?
collar.
What's the website?
You should go to Fogel's Corporate Comedy, and you will see my commercials that I've done over the years. And I've done work for J. Walter. This is in New York back in the '80s.
Yeah.
Actually.
I couldn't audition for them when I lived in Chicago, which is where she was based out of. After we moved from LA to Chicago, I couldn't audition for many advertising agencies in Chicago to do voice work because they all knew Grace, they all knew her, and you know, besides, I don't know, I guess I hit and missed the mark. But I met, you know, and what I was getting at is that our marriage had its ups and downs, ins and outs. We watched our friends, which is getting to my next question. You incorporated in your show some of the stories from your friends' marriages and relationships you probably saw from an aunt and an uncle that you may have had to bring it all together. Do people after the show come up to you and say, "Oh, I know, you know, I know so and so did. Yeah, I know that story. It's Aunt Peg and somebody else, and that story, sounds familiar."
Well, funny you should ask that. When I'm doing relationship material in general, whether they're in a marriage or not, I'm looking at couples down in the front row elbowing each other. Hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're elbowing and shooting each other a look as if the husband says, "You see, I told you," or the wife will turn to the husband, "You see what you put me through?" So it's catharsis, and I'm just telling the truth. It's all true. And going back to Jackie Mason, if you're a big Jackie Mason fan, as I am, because I go back to his YouTube, he's doing stuff that's so true about relationships, women, men, and it's from a man's point of view, satirizing what women, you know, put men through and what women put through men through, and the audience is laughing because they have to laugh, because when it resonates on that third level of truthfulness, you have to laugh or you'll cry, so you might as well laugh. But and then when I do the internet dating about being of a certain age, it's very difficult as you get older to do internet dating. I mean, it's dating, but I mean, imagine you've been married 30. There are people that come to my show that have been married longer than they've been single. So that's why during the show, I talk about marriage, talk about single, talk about my married friends, female married friends. I hit all the numbers, so everybody is not left out. But the show is written in such a broad sense that you'll get it. I mean, I performed for senior. I mean, I performed at the Delray Beach Playhouse a few weeks ago, sold out. And they were giving lunch and my show. And at the end of the show, I asked all these seniors, "Are you here for the deli or are you here for my show? Which one is it?" And I confused them. They didn't respond. But I had elderly women in the front row. Gary, hand to God, I think these women played mahjong with Moses' mom. That's how old they were. And they're laughing. Now, if there's 4 women at a table, I know they're widows because there's no
Right.
men, but they're laughing about it. I mean, they can remember back about their marriage. And
Yeah.
I do very broad characters like Herbie and Helena, are both my neighbors down here in Delray Beach. They're both 97 years old.
Wow.
They've been married their whole lives, and they've been married 75 years. The secret to the long marriage, they haven't spoken the last 15. I mean, it's just, and it's just, and that kills, that just destroys, because I'm doing Helene and I'm doing Herbie. So I'm going back and forth doing the characters.
Yeah.
And it's very theatrical. I mean, yes, there's stand up during the show because I'm a single man doing material, but it's very theatrical. And I'm doing them, and they really relate to that. So the point is, getting back to your original question, they're elbowing during the show. And then when I hear women that are of a certain age, my contemporary, they'll come up to me and go, "Oh, the internet dating you were right on. Right on." And that's what you want to do. You want to resonate on that third level of the satire, but when there's truthfulness and they're nodding their heads and they're laughing, that's why I wrote the show. I wanted to get to that third level of laughs where they all recognize. Now, when I'm satirizing women, the women in my show are going, "It's not me. They're talking about other women."
Yes.
And that's the 6 degrees of separation. But
yeah, absolutely.
He can't be possibly talking about me. He's talking about my friend Felicia. She's
Yes.
just like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're talking to Peter Vogel. You're on Main Street with Gary Allen here, as we are every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Peter is the star, a writer, and he's a dear friend of mine. And if you're in the neighborhood and you get a chance to see him in Till Death Do Us Part, you first, please. It's a story that he really tears apart marriage as far as showing you the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh,
and he also does a one-man play called "My Mother's Italian, My Father's Jewish," and I'm in therapy, and I think that's fantastic. So if it's coming to a neighborhood near you, like it is in Stewart at the Stewart Theater, the ACT, March 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. He's going to currently be in New York, but please call 772-932-8880 to get tickets to see this marvelous play directed by Chaz Palminteri.
Yes, that's in ACT Studio. It's called the ACT Studio Act Theater in Stewart, Florida. Call that number. But if you're going to be up in Waterbury, I'll be there this weekend, 19th and 20th. That's in Waterbury, Connecticut, which is not far from Hartford. I'll be doing 2 shows, and they can go to sevenangelstheater.org or always go to my website, Till Death Do Us Part, theplay.com. Till Death Do Us Part, theplay.com. Click on tour dates. You'll see the links there also.
You know, I was going to say something when you were talking about Chaz decided to direct you.
Yeah.
You know, you are like me. When we were acting rats out in LA and comedians, we took classes, we studied, we worked hard, we did what we had to do, we did our homework. And a lot of people who put these one-act plays together haven't done the homework that you and I have done, or the teachers we have been taught by, or the places we've been. Now, I was lucky enough to be with the Groundlings for a number of years, as you well know. And so we did our homework. So he saw that in you, because there's not a time I don't speak to you on the phone or see you that you're not animated, that you're not Peter Vogel, the animated guy, which, by the way, he does voiceover work. He writes commercials. Contact him, please, for corporate events. Also get a hold of him at 561-245-5252. Peter Vogel is fantastic for corporate events. I hate them because
as I always say, I'm the finest comedian within your price range.
I don't like corporate because you got to be so clean and so squeaky. It takes out most of my comedy that I used to do back in the day.
Yeah, and we're in a very woke cancel culture now that they're so scared of doing anything, and it's difficult. I mean, but I do a lot of the senior communities down here in South Florida because I have to, and they're a lot of fun. And I've honed the material in these groups. You know, it's very funny, Gary. When I was 28 and I had an audience of people that were 50, that could be my parents at that time, I go, oh my God, what am I going to talk to them about? They don't know what I'm talking about. I'm 28 years old. And then when I got to be this age of a man of a certain age, I go, oh my God, I have young kids at my show. What am I going to talk to them about? They have no idea what I'm talking about. It's just the cycle of life. Yeah. When you're young and someone's 50, my God. I mean, if I do the math, with my age now, these people in their late 80s now. But
Yeah.
it was very scary. But remember, if you're a young guy and you had a senior audience, and senior was people in the early 50s. Oh my God, these people could be my parents. They're not going to get what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, they'll look at you and go, "What are you going to do to make me laugh?" But then
Oh.
you go through life. You get older. I feel more comfortable performing in front of seniors than I do in front of kids because it's a whole different world now. What we come from a sarcastic baby boomer. Take no prisoners. We call it as we see it. Jerry Seinfeld, one of the great, existential comedians. He's the best. He's a comedic surgeon. He will not even do colleges anymore because what he says, they're taking the wrong way.
Yeah.
They'll be offended.
Yeah. I mean, it's gotten to the point where the old joke was, don't do politics on stage because you're going to irritate half of your audience. And it's true. And today I talk to comedians left and right that are out there, young comedians, and they say, you got to be careful. I mean, because people wear their politics now on their sleeves and shoulders.
Yeah.
And they will.
Yeah. When there was a Trump reference, this is years ago when in the beginning of his presidency, even then it was polarizing. People would yell out, "Hey, let him do his show, don't you?" And there was like almost a fight broke out. It was very, and we stay away from it. We stay away from it.
What have you learned by doing these two one-man plays about Peter Vogel that you didn't know when you originally got going, when you were starting to write these? And how has it helped you, not only in a relationship with the person that you're currently seeing, but in relationships in general with other people, men, women, as far as just friendships are concerned? What have you learned about yourself that you can impart to people during the productions that you are in?
Being single and being married could be a double-edged sword. I mean, it's the friends that are married and it's scary. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to lay it right on the line for you. When I hear stories of friends that cannot afford to get divorced, that scares me. They're in their own prison. And I'm saying, there are people that I have friends that have wonderful marriages.
Yeah.
And I talk about in the show, women will, you could say, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, I'm thankful for the very volatile relationships I've been in because it's all in my show. I take everything from life. I go, she's driving me crazy. I got to end this, but boy, am I getting a lot of material. And by the way, that's what comedians do. We take this stuff from our real lives. Yeah. Everybody loves Raymond. Great show. Remember that? 20 years ago. I know Ray Romano. Phil Rosenthal made a point of writing the show under the certain amount of pages. Let me explain to you how that works. Certain scripts come in at a certain amount, 75, it depends. I don't know what the sitcom script was back then, but he always underwrote because there would be more. It was a traditional sitcom where just Brad Garrett could give a slow burn look. That's 3 jokes. Just the look on Brad Garrett, and the audience is laughing hysterically. And he always told his writers, who happened to be colleagues of mine that I started with in stand-up, we're going home at 6 o'clock. I want you guys to have lives with your wives so we can come up with new material for the show. If working till 2 a.m. is not going to necessarily make something funnier. So he wanted them to have lives and to take that material from their lives and put it in the show. That's what comedians do. We look at the world and go, how can I put this into my show? How can I use this? So, but when I hear some horror stories, I mean, they're, like I said, their friends have great marriages and they're friends that they're in their own purgatory. I can't afford to get divorced because I'll lose everything. And Gary, between you and me and anyone else who's listening, I never wanted to feel like that. It's better to be right than wrong. And I constantly ask myself, and I'm talking to you as if you're my therapist, is it better to be in an emotional, committed relationship, which I've had many long-term, or be in a lousy marriage? What does that mean? Yes, till death do us part, and that's how I came up with the title, Till Death Do Us Part, You First. I just riffed it. I thought it was funny. I tested it on audiences. When I was doing My Mother's Italian after the show, I go, did you enjoy My Mother's Italian? They all applaud. I go, would you like to hear my solo show that'll be brought in another time? It's called Till Death Do Us Part, You First. They all laughed. And if they all laughed, I figure I had a good title. But people, think about that. I mean, as I say in the show, gun license, driver's license, hunting license has to be renewed. A marriage license has no expiration. You ever think about that? Yeah. Imagine if a marriage license had to be renewed every 2 years, people will either be on their best behavior, the couples, or they're going to go, I'm not so, hey, how about early renewal? No, 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 no. Let's wait right up to the day. I always thought that was funny. Imagine, it's like you get your car registration. You got to renew it every year. You want to send it in early enough to get it so you don't have a ticket if you don't have the registration. Imagine, now to me, that's a funny concept. I may put it into the show. Go, imagine 2 weeks before the renewal, somebody's getting nervous. Or aren't we going to go down and renew that? We'll wait. Let's see how it goes. Wait, what's the rush? We got 2 more weeks.
Right.
Come on. I'll make it your favorite meal if we do a 6 months early renewal. And I think that's what, and I've had comics go, wow, I mean that marriage lease, man. Wish I would have thought of that. And the audience thinks about it. I take them to another level. That's all.
I mean, you look back and you think about, now I'm older than you, a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
You think back to your aunts and uncles or your friends' parents. By the time they reach 50, 60 years old, Uncle Jake was sleeping in one room and Aunt Carol was sleeping in the other room.
Yeah.
Or they ditched the queen size bed or king bed, and now they have 2 twin beds in the bedroom.
Like
I mean,
Laura
they're no longer
like Laura and Rob Petrie.
Yeah. They're and I'll be perfectly honest with you. How my father and mother stayed together all those years just from sleeping, because before we expanded our home out, because there were 9 kids, and the relatives used to come and stay with us. So the kids would double up. And unfortunately, I would end up sleeping in the room with my mom and dad. And I would have to go to bed extremely early because my mom and dad snored so bad. It was like watching a movie of the Battle of Britain all over again with those 2 snoring. All I do is spend all night going, roll over, roll over, roll over. I couldn't even go to school the next day. It was so bad. I always would say, when are the relatives going back to Connecticut, for God's sakes?
Yeah, that's a problem with my last girlfriend. I snore, and no matter how much I put the nose things turning over, she just would sleep on the couch, or I'd sleep on the couch, because you need your sleep. Sleep is so important. It really is.
It is very, very, very important.
So so your parents constantly battled with the snoring, both of them, or just one or the other?
No. They both did. I mean, they were both smokers, and now the good part would be if my dad was off doing one of his flights. He was with Eastern Airlines for 35 years, but the point is that when they were both at home, they could rattle the house. Just the 2 of them could rattle the house.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable. So, it was, unfortunately, I was the kid that ended up sleeping with in the bedroom with them. But what changes have you made to your play, both of them, from the beginning till now, that have really?
I talk about COVID. I talk about the #MeToo movement.
Mm-hmm.
In dating today, it's very, very crazed. You don't know what to say to a woman. If they'll take it the wrong way. Of course, Chad, the original version of the show, I had someone who sounded like Morgan Freeman as my voice of my conscience. And then Chaz decided, let me be the voice. It'll be a show within a show, which has never been done before. Yeah. Everyone knows he's the director, but he's directing me during the show and me to answer questions. So it's never been done. It's a show within a show. So if you want to see, folks, and hear me act with Chaz Palminteri, Academy Award nominee and 3-time Emmy Award winner. He's a 3-time Emmy Award winner. Yeah. And come to the show and you'll actually hear Chaz, directing me more as a man to man. Why do you keep doing the same thing over and over again with women? And I keep fighting him. So it's kind of like the original version of the show was Christmas Carol meets Played Against Sam, where he's learning, it was Humphrey Bogart helping Woody Allen. And in this one, Christmas Carol was Morgan Freeman played the ghost of Valentine's past, present, and future. And by the way, the show takes place on Valentine's Day, and I'm dumped by my girlfriend on Valentine's Day. Gary Allen, have you ever heard of a man being dumped on Valentine's Day by the girlfriend? You have heard that?
Me.
You. Okay. There you go.
Me.
Okay.
I was in Las Vegas, as you know, where I was performing for years. And she was a showgirl. And
jealous.
And she was beautiful. She was beautiful. She had a quandary going on. She didn't know whether she really liked men or some other species. And she liked girls. And but her whole
options. She had options.
She had options. But the reason she broke up with me was not because she didn't love me, not she didn't care. She broke up with me because she didn't want to buy me a Valentine's gift.
Why?
Never got an explanation, never bothered to ask. Once you divorce yourself from me, I'm like, okay, that's it. See you later. Take care.
It's interesting. When a woman says it's over, it's over.
Yeah.
If they part and the man still has feelings, when they connect again, maybe they still have that physical attraction. They remember the good time. But I've learned one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong. When a woman says it's over, it's over.
It is.
There's like no negotiation. There's no like, what about the good times? No, I've compartmentalized have you found that when they say it's and I go, how do you negate what we had for so long? Okay, and I've had that with all my exes. Yeah. I still have feelings kind of like I remember, hey, we had a good time, and it's nothing negative, but like it's like you're talking to a different person, and women have that superpower, right?
I don't know. I don't know if I picked that up in life or whether it came from show business, because you, as well as projects start and they can stop, and you can't get emotional about it, and you just kind of go, okay, fine, all right. Peter and I did this show together for 6 weeks. NBC didn't pick it up. Okay, goodbye, Peter. You're a good friend. We'll talk. And then I move on. And maybe that's the attitude I have, so I don't get hurt, because we all have that wall where we don't want to get hurt. And that has a lot to do with relationships in general. I just want to remind everybody, you're watching Main Street. Gary Allen with you. Peter Vogel is my guest today. He has 2 one-man shows. My mother is Italian, my father is Jewish, and I'm in therapy, which we're going to get to, as well as Till Death Do Us Part, You First, which I always love that. But I want to talk a little bit about some of our sponsors. We have the Elks organization, Elks Club of 1676, recently held their charity ball, and they raised over $4,000. And these funds are going to be used for local veterans organizations and children in need of physical and occupational therapy. Go check out the Elks. I'm a member of the Elks, or I soon will be, I should say, at elks1676.com. You want to join this organization? They're fantastic. Also, Friends of the Japanese Garden recently held their free festival at the Ichigama. Well, I had this
easy for you to say.
Yeah. Ichiroma, Miami Japanese Garden. Close to 750 folks attended this free Japanese festival. The organization was founded in 1984 to assist the city of Miami to maintain and promote the garden of Japanese gardens and the Japanese culture. They're working with the city and the Jungle Island to upgrade the facilities. The next event will be in May. We'll talk a little bit about that before. But Ichirama, Miami Japanese Garden. I had it just before the show, but
Ichirama, is it Ichirama?
Ichirama, yeah, it's Ichirama. It's Ichirama. Okay. You got it better than I do. Okay. Ichirama. Sorry, Rick Del Vecchio, my executive producer. I screwed that one up, but royal. But we'll get to it. But we're talking to Peter Vogel. He's going to be at the ACT Theater, in Stuart, Florida.
ACT Studio Theater. That's ACT Studio. Oh, you have the.
March 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. Dial them up at 772-932-8880 and go and see Till Death Do Us Part, You First, which is a funny thing.
Don't forget, Gary, this Friday and Saturday, March 19th and 20th, Seven Angels Theater in Waterbury.
Absolutely. And this whole thing is all directed, and you'll hear Chaz Palminteri's voice as the voiceover during the play, which is fantastic. Like Peter says, it's a play within a play, and I think you'll enjoy it 100%. Let's talk a little bit about.
Getting back to what you were just saying.
Yeah.
So when you still had feelings for the woman, but she just like cut off.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, that was it. Now I saw her. Now I would see her from time to time in productions and stuff, and we were always very friendly. But
she had no feelings for you anymore. That was it.
No. She just didn't want to buy me a gift for Valentine's Day.
Why? You never knew why.
I never knew why. I never asked. One of her friends said, weren't you ever curious why? I said, no, if she wants to tell me, that's fine. But otherwise, there's nothing she could buy for me I can't get for myself. So, that was the end of that.
Didn't want to splurge for the card.
Or something along those lines. I mean, we had a great life together in Las Vegas. I mean, she would come over to my place and then for birthdays and holidays and stuff. But, everything, as I'm sure you found out in Till Death Do Us Part, You First, everything has a cycle. Everything has a time period. And then sometimes, like friendships with young men that you grew up with in high school and stuff, it runs its course.
Yeah,
And then,
it
and then
runs, and that's one of the things I discussed during the show, Gary, is how I ask the audience, and I look at them right there, I go, how do you do it? 30, 40, 50 years plus. How do you keep that spark, that romance, that interest? I applaud them because and then I get two schools of camp, Gary. Get
mm,
married, find someone that will complete you. Other one says, stay single. Look how good you are. You have your hair, you have your health. You're not going to be financial. It's not like, I don't know if men have a fear of commitment, or they have more of a fear of financial ruin. I mean, can you imagine your dad? One of my friends shall remain nameless. He goes, you don't understand. I've been married over 20 years. I will be paying alimony for for the rest of my life, and I don't have that much money. It's easy. And some of these people, the relationship is, it's just my roommate now. We're married. Does that make sense? That's what always scared me. Who needs a roommate? I need my best friend. And when you feel like you're now married and just there's no relations, no intimacy. It's just like, I'm paying all the bills. I'm taking care of financially. I mean, a guy has to think, why am I doing this? I can't. And if I divorce her, I'll have to pay her. So it's cheaper to stay together. That is one of the reasons I never wanted to go through that.
yeah. And today it's not just men taking care of the women, but there are a lot of women out there, highly successful business women that meet men, they fall in love. The guy just doesn't have the same type of income that she does. And and a lot of women, a lot of men can live with that. I know that for a period of time before I got married to Grace, I was going to school still at UCLA. And we were together. We were living together. She paid most of the bills. I worked part-time, but she still paid most of the bills. After a while, I said, I remember going to Bud Friedman one night. Bud Friedman, folks, was the owner of the Improv out in Los Angeles. He started a whole thing in New York. I remember going to him one night and saying, this is driving me crazy. I've got to earn a living. I got to hold up my end. He said, welcome to the new world, and so it happens on both sides. Men don't want to get a divorce. Women don't want to get a divorce, and you can't blame them. But then again, there are some people who they finally just reach the end point and they say, I can't take this anymore. I'd rather be single. I don't care what it costs me. I'd rather be single.
Yeah, it's like, but trust me, Gary, as you know, you may not hear about it. And then there are the couples that constantly fight, and they're so codependent on each other that another friend that shall remain nameless, I told you the names have been changed, protected, killer. I go, how do you do it? You're constantly fighting. And then women, God bless you, you will focus and be obsessed with one thing he does, and you never let it go. Men, we just, all right, it happened, we move on, but they remember stuff from years ago. Why are you bringing this up? And I talk about it in the show, there has to be a statute of limitations. When I do that bit in the show, they go crazy because men are going, yeah, what's the point of bringing up something that happened 3 years ago that is beyond the statute of limitations, thinking and it has nothing to do with what they're arguing about now.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. My mother and father had a horrible marriage. My father was a narcissist, all about him. He was a man who should never have been married, should never had children. It was all about him, put my mother in an early grave. And that could be one of the reasons I didn't have a good role model. And I go, because at 10 years old, I thought, my father was always berating my older brother, my younger brother, yelling at my mother, even though my mother didn't do anything. It wasn't even really yelling at my mother for what she did. It was things upsetting in his life. And when a Jewish man vents, he's yelling and screaming, and really has nothing to do with her. She just had to sit there and take it and going, I've done nothing to this man. So that was my role model. And at 10 years old, Gary, I decided, imagine being 10 years old and thinking to yourself, I have to get away from this family. That's where I used to break out with hives. I had post-traumatic syndrome from the stress. I would get migraine headaches around 2:00 when I was in grade school. Why?
Really?
Ask me why. I would get
Probably
migraines.
because you knew you had to go home.
Exactly. I knew I had to go home and the battle would begin.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the reasons why I stayed single. I just put my energies into my career. And it was very tough. I didn't want to put a woman through what I was going through. You know what it is out there in LA, earning a living. I go, what woman's going to put up with my nonsense? Be traveling to Ho-Ho's Comedy Hut in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I go, I thought we're getting together. You needed someone that dug comedy, that was into it, that wouldn't mind me going off and traveling. But that's what comedians do. I mean, Jay Leno, he has a lot of money. He can fly Mavis on the plane. They're used to that. Jerry Seinfeld, that's his job. This is what we do. We make people laugh.
Yeah,
And to
yeah.
find someone who will put up, I don't need to be around someone 24/7. I like giving someone their space. I'm
Of course.
amazed at couples that are, do you know any codependent couples?
Yes.
How do you look
Oh
at
yeah.
that?
Oh yeah.
How
Oh
do you
yeah.
look at that?
Oh yeah. When I was growing up, I had it in my own family. I had my brother and his wife. She was a weekend tennis person, and she used to enter these tennis tournaments, and the most she would get out of it were these little round gold tennis balls for some kind of a prize. And if it wasn't for him working, owning a construction company in Fort Lauderdale, they would have not. She met him, and that was her whole thing. Otherwise, she probably would be nowhere. I mean, she would be, but she is so codependent on him, and he's codependent on her now. They've been married for so many years. Oh yeah, absolutely. My mom and dad were kind of like that too. When my mom passed away, I used to hear about the syndrome of the spouse left behind, primarily a man, falling apart. Here's a former Marine Corps fighter pilot, captain for Eastern Airlines, retired, John Wayne type, real tough, minute my mom got sick and died, he fell apart like he was a child, and it was like I had to take care of a child.
Usually when one spouse goes, they usually go 6 months later or something if they're up there in age. Is that true?
Yeah, my dad tried to push that along, but unfortunately, I came home soon enough and had him in the hospital, and I spent the next 2 years. Yeah,
but goes to prove he loved your mother.
Yes,
that's great.
Without question, they loved each other. They would fight. They were both born on January 19th, 3 years apart. They were like two bulls in a china factory, but they loved each other. There was a point where my mother was going to divorce him because he got a little. He wasn't cheating or anything. He didn't believe in any of that stuff. He was very, very much a Christian man in that sense. But it was just difficult sometimes for my father to live with. Coming and going. And if the airlines were laying off, and maybe he was up in seniority and he would have to fly flights he didn't like, but they stuck it together for 35 years until my mother passed away from cancer at the age of 77 years old. He lived until I took care of him until he was 86 down in Fort Lauderdale, not too far from where our buddy Will Schreiner lives.
Oh, you had to bring up Will Schreiner. No, Will
I love Will.
I love Will. No, he's
I
a
love
friend.
Will.
Very talented director. He's a great guy. He's a friend of mine. Yeah, Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, he came back. He lived in LA and he lives here.
Well, we were all friends growing up down there. I mean, there was Schreiner, there was me, there was Kelsey Grammer grew up down there.
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew each other in LA. I didn't see Kelsey that much, but I saw Will because we played on the improv softball team. This is Peter Vogel. He's my guest today. Vogel. Sorry.
Fogel.
Peter Vogel. He's here with his 2 one-man shows. Till Death Do Us Part, You First. My mother's Italian, my father's Jewish, and I'm in therapy. Please go see this.
And if people want to see where I'm doing that show around the country, go to playhouseinfo.com. Playhouseinfo.com. Click on the drop-down box, look for my show,
right,
the city, and you'll find out where I'm performing. I'll be there in Delaware at the end of May, and then I go to Lakewood, Colorado, and then I go to Kirkland, Washington in the fall. But go to playhouseinfo.com if you want to know where I'm coming, or follow me on Facebook. I'm always announcing where I'm performing.
And where are you going to be in South Florida? I mean, what's cooking down there? Because I know things are opening up.
Well, I have, again, go to Till Death Do Us Part, theplay.com. You'll see where I'm doing in South Florida. Like I said, I'm doing ACT Studio Theater, the ACT Studio Theater in Stewart.
March 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th.
Then I'm doing something with other producers. The Maplewood Playhouse is going to be hosting my show in West Palm, May.
Peter will let us know. I will.
Yeah, we're getting the dates together. Just go follow me on Facebook or go to Till Death Do Us Part, theplay.com, tour dates, and you'll know exactly where I'm going to be.
Since we got started a little late, we're going to run over past the 3 o'clock hour. I'm sure Andres doesn't mind that for a few minutes. You have had the pleasure, as we've been talking about relationships, you have worked with some of the finest actors in show business over the years. You trained with some of the finest actors that have come along in a long time. when you look back at your career, when you started out as young Peter Vogel back in the day, and you look at yourself today, what would you like to tell yourself, the young man from the gentleman you are today, about the business?
Get out. Get out. Listen, I trained as an actor at SUNY at Purchase, which is above New York City. It was an acting conservatory. I went to school. I was actually a little older than Ving Rhames, but I used to hang out with Ving Rhames when he was 50 pounds lighter, and he was a young actor. Steven Weber from the TV show Wings.
Yeah.
He's
now on Chicago MD, Chicago Med.
Very down to earth, very funny guy, nice man. I was hanging out with him in California when he was doing the show Wings, and I forgot the actor who played his brother.
Yeah, he was on Madam President or Madam
Yes,
Secretary.
Madam President. But like he says to me, oh yeah, the whole cast was there. I'm at the table. When you're on a hit sitcom, you want to take it to the end till that baby goes off the air. You're making the good money. He goes, yeah, what's his name wants to get off the show and start doing movies. They all think you're never happy with what you have. No matter what you have, you go, hey man, I'm young, I'm good looking. Tim Daly. It was Tim Daly.
Yes.
Tim Daly. He goes, Tim wants to get off the show and go, he wants to be a movie star. I'm taking this show Wings right to the end. I ain't leaving anywhere. You got a hit show, you stay on that show, right?
Yeah.
And Steven Weber went to my school. Wesley Snipes went actually to my Purchase. Again, I'm older than these guys. I was gone. Melissa Leo, who won an Oscar with the Mark Wahlberg movie, she went to Purchase. A lot of people went to my acting school, and they seem to. Again, when I left acting, I went and studied in Chicago at the Second City. I was with their touring company for a very short time. So the minute I got out of college, I was doing stand-up, doing commercials. Like I said earlier, I was the ring around the collar man for Whisk detergent. I did voiceovers. And tell myself, as Jerry used to say, I never wanted anything. I never wanted to fall back on anything. I wanted to just do my stand-up.
Yeah.
Because when you have the fallback, but I became a copywriter and author in my early 40s. I switched careers for a while. I learned how to become a copywriter, writing direct response emails, websites, long direct mail that you would get. People call it junk mail, but I would write magalogs and stuff like that. I needed another career because, you're getting older and the comedy club audiences are getting younger. I needed something else because it was a very, very competitive time during the Bud Friedman, Mitzi Shore years,
Yes.
The joke is every time a GM plant closes, there's like 2,000 more people that are becoming comedians. Everyone thinks they can be funny. Yeah. And it's very difficult to rise to the top of the food chain.
It is one of the hardest professions in the world to do. And you see it all the time when you would do open mic nights, if you would show up at the Improv or something, if Howard was emceeing or if I was emceeing.
Howard Allen. Did you just say Howard Allen?
Howard Allen. I love Howard. But if we were emceeing, if he was or I was, or if I showed up just to maybe grab a beer and I'd go back and watch these young comics like myself, I was learning as I'm going along.
You were young ones.
It's the hardest profession in the world to get, because you stand up there, and as you said earlier, people now look up at you and they go, "Okay, now make me laugh. Say something funny."
Listen, I've
been bar humor. You can't do bar humor on stage.
Now, here's the thing about LA. You don't go to LA to become a good comic. If you're smart, you better be the good comic already, because you're not going to get the stage time. The best thing for any young comedian that's working, they work on the road, work in small clubs, get your act, hone it together, fine tune it, and then go to LA to showcase, because you're not going to get the stage time to become. You have to be a bad comic before you're a good comic. I used to be a Catch a Rising Star in New York, and Robin Williams, that was during his heyday. Every time I'm ready to go on stage, Robin Williams would walk in first, and they go, "Put Robin on." And I once saw Robin destroy the room.
You might as well go home.
Go home. There's no reason. Jerry Seinfeld would go on after him, very calm and cool. Now, this was before Seinfeld. He was Jerry Seinfeld, the well-known comic from The Tonight Show. But Jerry went on stage. He waited for the room to subside. He looks out at the audience. I remember saying, and we all know what he's thinking, and he knows what the audience is thinking. He goes, "Piece of cake." And he just went right into his act. He didn't give a shit. Just, I'm going to do my show. I'm not going to be intimidated. And I've been on stage where Robin walks into Stand Up New York, and they're flashing me to get off stage. And Robin goes, no, let him finish his set. Let him finish. Don't, because when Robin comes in, that's like Moses coming off, Robin's here. No, he go, where? No. Let Peter finish his set. Let him finish, which was very nice of him. He's a very nice man, Robin. I mean,
Peter, you know the story about me and Robin, do you not, or no?
No, I think you may have mentioned it. What?
When I first got to LA, I hadn't met him yet. One day I'm sitting at the Improv having lunch with Bud Friedman, because Bud knew my Uncle Tubby, the comedian on Miami Beach.
Right.
And we're sitting there, and I was introduced to him. And slowly but surely, we developed a friendship. Rick Overton, of course, was a very good friend of Robin's. And one day I'm sitting there, and I'm really down. I had auditioned for the Groundlings. For those of you who don't know, the Groundlings are sort of like the second city of Los Angeles.
Yes, I studied the Groundlings too. Were you there when Steve Bluestein was there?
No, but I was there with Kevin Costner, Bob Saget, Barbie Benton, Nick and John Turturro.
Wow.
Steve was
like, Steve. Steve was one of the original. I think that was even before you, I guess.
And Hartman was one of my teachers on improv or impersonations and stuff. But Robin sits down and he says, what's wrong, Gary? And I said, I auditioned again for the Groundlings, but I don't think I got it. He said, you're a funny guy. You do voices, blah, 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 blah. So he said to Bud, hey, I got to go use your phone, blah, blah, blah. He comes back 20 minutes later. He hands me a piece of paper. He said, call this guy Monday morning. You're in. You're in.
Oh.
At the Groundlings, you're in.
You were in the company.
Yeah. I was in to take classes and then see if I could be part of the company, which I was eventually.
You had to audition just to take the classes.
Yes.
I took classes. You know how I got my visa went through. I guess maybe in '86 when I studied with them, they allowed anyone who, I guess, they auditioned and got in. I don't know. I took classes.
But they you didn't have to do much of an audition. You just kind of sat there and they interviewed you, 2 or 3 people, and they asked you some questions. They asked you if you could do this, if you could do that, and you blah 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 to see if you had the basics down. But Robin got me in, and my career started taking off like that. And of course, having Stephen Boschko as my professor at Carnegie Mellon, I got Hill Street Blues and I got extra work. So I was working when I got to LA.
What was Boschko was what did he teach at Carnegie Mellon?
He taught theater. He taught acting.
He was an acting teacher.
Acting and directing and I got there by accident. I was visiting a guy who I served in the Air Force with. I'm sitting outside while he's in auditioning. This guy comes over and he sits next to me, and he's kind of got beginnings of silvery salt and pepper look. And he sits there, are you auditioning? Blah, blah, blah. No, anyway, I ended up auditioning. My friend who was there to really audition, I was just up visiting him in Pittsburgh, and I was going back home to Miami. He doesn't get it. I get it. And I'm at Carnegie Mellon for a year and a half, maybe 2 years up in Pittsburgh. And then from there,
for anyone who doesn't know, Carnegie Mellon, I had teachers that actually graduated Carnegie Mellon. It was Carnegie Mellon is a very illustrious acting school that rivaled Juilliard, correct, Gary?
Yes. I think that would, well, I don't know if it rivaled Juilliard. Robin and I talked about that because Robin spent 1 year at Juilliard and then he left. All I know is that it gave me some real grounding. It gave me some basic stuff and some belief in myself. And because when I auditioned, I was like, no, I'm not an actor. I'm more of a radio guy than I'm an actor. But boy, it's tough. It's not only tough to stay there, but then you run into all this competition in the business, and you better have it together. Like you said, when you go to LA, it's not a place to get it together. You got to have it together. And then things maybe will happen for you. Maybe not.
It all comes down to a lot of stuff. I mean, look, Palminteri turned, if you listen to his story, he says it all the time. He was offered $200,000, $250,000, $300,000, $1 million just for the rights to the story. He wouldn't sell his rights to his story, A Bronx Tale, unless he starred as Sonny and wrote the screenplay. But he knew in his heart he had such a commodity and a project that he knew eventually it'd come around. And then De Niro entered his life and said, you're going to play Sonny, you'll write the screenplay, I'll play your father, shake my hand, and that was it. It was serendipitous. Now, there are people that he tells me that when he teaches, they think, and you can actually access Chaz Palminteri. He'll coach you for X amount of dollars. I mean, how many Academy Award nominees are going to train you as an actor? He teaches. He likes teaching. He likes giving back to the community. And then he says to me, they all think what happened to me is going to happen to them. It doesn't happen. The last time it happened to another actor other than Chaz was Sly Stallone in Rocky. It's a comedy. Basically, they didn't want him to play Rocky. They wanted the rights. He goes, I'll tell you what, let me play Rocky. I'll take less money. But my point is, yes, could it happen? Yes. But he always says, write the show for yourself to help yourself get an agent. But do not think what happened to me, that they're going to buy you one-man show and make it into a movie. It's serendipitous. And if you don't have that luck gene, right, Gary? Luck. There are people that don't even have your talent or my talent. They lucked out. They were at the right place at the right time. And if you listen to most of these actors, they always use that. I listened to interviews. Yeah, I kind of lucked out. I was kind of at the right place. You can't beat luck. You can't. You could be as talented as you can. And if you don't get the break, you don't get the break.
Real quick. When I was at the University of Miami before I went to Carnegie Mellon, guess who was in a couple of my English classes?
Who?
Stallone.
In Carnegie, where? Where was it?
At the University of Miami.
Stallone. Was Stallone? Oh, really? Because he's a New York boy. What was he doing in Miami?
I don't know. His mother was living down there at the time, and he ran out of money, and they finally told him, "You got to go." Now he could buy the school, but but yeah, he's cool. I mean, when I ran into him in L.A., he vaguely remembered me, but then after a while, he went, "Oh yeah." And everybody thinks he's some kind of a dummy like Rocky, and he's not.
No, he's a
brilliant.
He's a smart cat. Don't that's just the role he's playing. Although when I watched Rocky, go, any man who takes that many blows to the head in the first movie, how he made it to the second movie, he'd be brain dead. Basically, it's
basically those are movie stunts. I know.
But it's just he took a lot of blows in those movies. Anyway, he's actually he's quite brilliant. And Chaz did a movie with Stallone, played Stallone's bodyguard in the movie.
Really?
The comedy. But again, getting back to your original question, what would I tell myself?
Yeah.
Have a good backup plan. I trained as an actor. I trained as the School of Hard Knocks as a comic. I have a pretty good business mind. I would have probably gotten a degree in copywriting earlier, but the stupidest thing is to go to acting school and get a Bachelor of Fine Arts. But back in our day, when you had a college degree, you actually got work. Today, getting a college degree means nothing. Means nothing. Means you'll be unemployed in a career that pays you no money. That's basically it.
The airlines have even lowered. You don't have to have a college degree anymore for a pilot.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that still doesn't say that they're going to hire you. They're still going to get the guys from the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force before they hire somebody off the street who has got so many hours, but it doesn't have a college degree. They're still going to get the military guys ahead of time.
They do that, huh? They prefer the guys that have done the real air time.
Oh yeah, I mean that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do in life, was to follow in my dad's footsteps. But unfortunately, when I was getting out of the Air Force, I had a motorcycle accident, and it kind of destroyed that thought process, and I had to move on to something else. And so it's funny how things work out. And here I am doing this on C News Network, which I forgot to mention at the beginning of the program. He is Peter Vogel. March 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, he will be in Stewart at the ACT Studio Theater. Call them at 772-932-8880.
We're almost sold out. We're almost sold out there.
Great.
But call up, see what tickets are available, and of course, up in the Waterbury Seven Angels Theater in Waterbury, Connecticut.
I also want to thank my executive producer, Rick Del Vecchio. I also want to thank Andres, my studio producer, as well as our community sponsors, the Japanese Garden of Miami, the Elks Lodges of Miami, for their continued support of this particular program. Next week, we have a great guest coming on, Mr. Joe Johnson, former Magic 102.7. Beetle Brunch is a show that he produces. He also used to do Jukebox Saturday night. He's an old dear friend of mine of my days working in radio in South Florida. And I just want to thank Peter so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been a gas. When you do get those dates in May, you let me know, and I will talk about it on the air as I do other things for other people. And Peter, I wish you well on your travels. Please be safe, be sound, And we've got some great shows coming up for you in the upcoming weeks. I think Ray Abruzzo is going to join us at some particular
Oh,
point.
Ray Abruzzo is a good friend of my one of my writing partner friends, Paul Jackson, and he always raves about Ray Abruzzo. Very good actor, and a veteran. Was on The Sopranos, everything.
Yeah, little Carmine. And then I'm trying to get a hold of, and I think we're going to get Adrian Paul from the Highlander on again as well.
Oh, you want to hear a funny? I
Go ahead.
was with APA, and they were about to sign me. Adrian Paul walks in. This is during Highlander years. I go, I looked at him. You've been around forever, and he starts laughing because he was immortal. I go, you've been around forever. He actually laughed. Let me tell you something. I always wanted to look like Adrian Paul.
Who doesn't?
I mean, I'm talking about early Adrian Paul, not Adrian Paul who's my age now. But
no. Have you seen him lately?
How's he look? He's
he looks fantastic. Adrian looks fantastic.
Let me tell you, Adrian Paul actually is the real deal as far as a martial artist, because I do martial arts.
Yeah.
He actually teaches fencing and all the sword play. He's actually a real certified instructor. He knows his stuff.
Yeah,
but,
he's a gas to have around, and
I was jealous. I was jealous. And I go, God, if I looked like, I looked at him. I go, with your looks and my personality and comedy, I could run this down. And he laughed again because he's so darn good looking,
Oh yeah, he really is. Will Schreiner, I think, is going to be coming on board in April or May at some particular point, along with Harvey Korman's son is going to be coming on board to talk about Harvey's wonderful life. And then, of course, we always include all our business people in South Florida. And I include all of you for taking the time to join us here on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. And we're going to be back with the Main Street, Gary Allen with you. And again, thank you all, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank all of you for taking the time out of your day. You can go on YouTube. You can go on Facebook. The program, the URLs will be up that you can go on, click on, and watch these shows afterwards. Until next week, would you please do me a big favor? And Peter, stay right where you are. Take care of yourselves and each other.